Last week we heard from Elizabeth, John the Baptist's mother, and she told us her story about waiting for a child, and only God knew when the right time was for her to have a son. In today's gospel, we once again hear about a time when people thought Jesus was too late to heal, but we are reminded that God may not come when we call him, but he will be there on time. Picture yourself in a crowded area. People are going all different directions. You feel arms of others brushing against you as you walk through the crowd. All of a sudden, you feel someone touch your clothes, and you immediately stop. Has someone taken something from you? Why did you feel that person's touch over everyone else's? Now let's look at it from another direction. You are a very sick person. You have been sick for many, many years, and you have been to many doctors and specialists, and no one can seem to help you get well. In fact, you've gotten worse, and you've begun to give up, until you find out that you have one more chance to be cured and to get better. You go to this crowded place, you see him. Your faith in this person tells you that if only you could touch his clothes, you'll be healed. You risk it. You weave your way through the crowd to get close to him. You know you have been deemed unclean, and if others come in contact with you, they too become unclean. You know that if you touch him, he can become unclean. So you're only going to touch his clothes. You work your way through the crowd, you touch his clothes, and immediately you're healed. How do you feel? What are you going to do? Run as fast as you can the opposite direction of the crowd? But before you can do anything, he stops. He asks, who touched him? People around him all looked at him strangely. They all have brushed up against him. But he's asking for that one person, and you know who you are. Do you keep going the other direction? What does your heart tell you to do? You have been healed by this person. How can you run? If he healed you just by touching his clothes, surely he knows who you are. What is the advantage of running away? So you turn, and afraid of what might happen, you begin to tell your story. And everyone around you is astonished that you have come to risk their lives and this man's life to be healed. But the man tells you that your faith has made you well. Go in peace, your suffering is over. Let's look at another story. You are a parent. Your child has become sick, and no one has been able to cure her. You are at your wit's end. What can you do? You have heard about a man who has been able to work miracles and heal those who have suffered. But this man is not someone that you should associate with. You are a leader and part of a group that does not believe in what this man is doing and saying. But it is your child, your own flesh and blood, that is suffering, and as a parent, you will do anything to save your child. So you risk it. In front of a crowd, you risk it. You ask this man to come to your home and heal your child. And the man agrees. He knows who you are. He knows you are a leader of a group who does not like him, but he goes anyway. He knows your love for your child, and he knows that as a parent you will do anything for your child, and the faith that you have in this person that you should not trust is very strong. The journey takes a while, and there are interruptions along the way. But this man does not seem to be too worried that you will arrive too late. Even after you are told that your child has died, there is no hurriedness to the travel. This healer reminds you, don't be afraid, just have faith. The same faith that brought you to this man, the same faith that has allowed you to do this daring act and ask someone you should not associate to help your child. You arrive at your home. Everyone is asked to leave except you and your spouse and a few that came with this man. He goes into your child's room, he takes their hand and tells them to get up. And they do. You're amazed. Your child, who is thought to be dead, is up walking around. Immediately you are told to feed your child. You are also told not to tell anyone about this healing. In our gospel today, there's a lot going on. You can read it and say, Jesus has just healed 2 more people. One in the middle of a crowd and one in the privacy of a home. And we could stop right there. We could say that we've heard about 2 more miracles. But there's more to these 2 stories. The one in the middle of the crowd, no one really witnessed that miracle. The healing had already occurred before Jesus stopped to ask who had touched him. And even then, because the crowd was pushing on him, they didn't understand what he was asking, until the woman came forward and told her story. As many of us have walked in a crowd of non-believers, but still push our way, how many of us have walked in a crowd of non-believers, but still pushed our way through to be near God? How hard is it to continue to have faith amongst faithless? Now let's look at the other healing. This is a child in the home of her parents. She has died and family and friends begin to mourn her loss. But her father, a religious leader of a local synagogue, comes to Jesus. A man he, as a religious leader, should not be talking with or asking for favors from. He takes Jesus to his home, and Jesus tells those who mourn for her that she's only sleeping. He takes her parents and his disciples into her room, and he takes the girl's hand and he tells her to get up. And she does. She is alive and she's healed. The healing that took place in the home of the synagogue leader was more private, but the father had to come to a public place and ask Jesus to heal his daughter. In front of a crowd, he had to ask, do you think that was easy for him? Is it easy for us to do? When was the last time we stood up in the middle of a crowd of strangers and asked God to help us? We are very private people. We don't like to have others know what is happening in our lives, and we don't want to be judged. We don't want people to look at us as if we ask for help from someone who should not be helping us. Do we look at it as a sign of weakness? Do we worry that people are going to look at us badly? And why do we sometimes wait so long to ask for God's help? This leader had exhausted all his other efforts, and he too thought his daughter would die and maybe had given up hope, until he saw Jesus and immediately asked for his help. Once he has healed their daughter, he tells them not to tell anyone of this miracle because the timing was not yet right. Jesus had to do more. He wanted people to follow him and listen to what he had to tell them, not what the miracles he was performing. He needed a little more time before he could be confronted by those religious leaders about his teachings and healings and the miracles he had done. Did you catch that? The timing was not right yet. Once again, we hear God telling us about his timing, and when it is right, he will deliver. When I read through the gospel, I heard people taking risks. I heard risks of being caught because they were not supposed to be in a crowd, being unclean, or being caught that they were asking for help from someone that they were not supposed to be supportive of. I also heard the word faith. Both the woman and the father had faith that Jesus could help them. So how do we put this all together? What does timing, risk, and faith have to do with all of this? Here's my take. In 2 weeks, 18 youth and adults are going to head to New Orleans for the National Youth Gathering. We're going to be joined by 30,000 other youth and adults. Will there be crowds? Absolutely. Everywhere that we go, there will be crowds. And not just the visitors in New Orleans, but we'll be mixed in with the people that have survived and lived in New Orleans all their lives. Those that have survived Katrina and are still rebuilding that city. Will God be with us? Absolutely. Because we know God is always around us, right? Will we have the opportunity to share our faith to others, even non-believers? Yes. We will see the faith of others, and we will also see the faith others have, especially those that have survived and stayed in New Orleans all these years. Will it be risky? Maybe. Can we do it? Absolutely. With God's help, we can do it. Is this the right time? It'll be God's time. Amen.